Welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston. Join Dr. Pinkston today as she teaches you how an integrative approach to health, combining holistic and contemporary medical information, can lead you to the better life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston.
Hello there. Welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston. I am Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston here in San Antonio. And today I'm winging it alone. I have a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, so I want to talk about that. But here in a few minutes, I do want to let everybody know that not only am I on radio here in San Antonio every Sunday at 4 on the great 9:30 a.m. The Answer, but I also have a podcast. So you can go onto my website at drpbetterlife.com. And you can take a look at my website. I have a link to the YouTube channel so you can watch, see what my face actually looks like. And you can also listen to iTunes, iHeartMedia, and Google Play, Amazon Audible, Spotify. All of those are places where you can find my podcast. Just type in The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston. And but you can go to my website, drpbetterlife.com, and that is where you can find me. I also have a blog and some other interesting things, some products and things that I align with. I don't necessarily sell things, but there are things I like to promote, and you may find something that adds some quality to your existence and your life, because that's what it's all about, right? Bettering your life. So today I'm going to be a little bit Debbie Downer and try to bring light to a topic that means a lot to me. I have a personal story to share with you that my sister some years ago committed suicide, and she was 10 years older than me, and much like my mom in some ways. Definitely I could lean on her for some of my raising, so to speak. When we say in Texas that's my raising was due to my sister, and she was a very important figure in my life. She suffered horribly from mood disorder and depression, and even some substance abuse, which to me is not an embarrassing thing. That is something that happens to a lot of people in a lot of different statures in life, a lot of different places. So, you could be at the grocery store standing next to somebody, they look just fine, and they're going through all of these issues. You just never know who's going through it. And she suffered terribly. So in that, I wanted to talk a little bit about suicide and suicide prevention. I think that most people don't really understand why people, commit suicide. I think most of the time people would say that people are very selfish when they commit this act. And in a way, maybe so. I think that it is very heartbreaking that somebody would hate their lives so much that they feel pushed to that extent. I think everybody at one point has questioned their existence and thought, maybe I would be better off if I weren't here. I know I have. I think everybody has. So I think it's better if we just admit to that and admit that, sometimes we get pushed places where we don't understand why things are happening to us the way they are happening. I do think everybody has that place where you can get pushed too far. Even somebody who doesn't have depression and anxiety or a mood disorder, just going through something very terrible in your life, and seems like things get heaped upon us, especially these days. Social media and bullying and the choices that people are making in their lives, trying to be themselves. And I'm talking about the lesbian and gay community, people, there's all sorts of facets of life where people are trying to just make the best of who they are and what they feel is right for themselves in life. So yes, you can get pushed to a point where you feel like you can't go any further. So maybe it's not just depression. Maybe you just feel like you're so overwhelmed and there's just no other way to get peace. And if you are at that point, you need to understand, and I think when people feel like they are in that model of their life, that there is nobody out there, they are completely alone. Sometimes they're embarrassed and don't want to say that they feel driven to do this. Sometimes they're just desperate. And it's in a moment where you feel a bit impulsive and this just seems like the right time. You just feel brave all of a sudden. But it's a very lonely feeling, and people will cry out for help sometimes and say that they want to do this and then get help. There are many people who don't, though. Many people who will just go to a place, disappear, and then all of a sudden a family member, a friend, or somebody, or a stranger will walk in on disaster and find that they have already committed the act and it's done. So, there are times where it's a bit impulsive, like with bipolar disorder. So bipolar disorder is a mood disorder that I think very high-functioning people, most of the time when you think of bipolar disorder, you think about somebody who is, wandering on the street, talking to themselves disheveled and, asking for money or maybe not even at that ability. But I think people with bipolar disorder actually are very high-functioning people. They live amongst all of us in life and pretend they don't have a problem, when inside they are really cooking and suffering, and it can be a level of agitation. So when we think of bipolar disorder, we think about people who are really, up and spending a lot of money, or hypersexual, or gambling, or, some sort of kind of manic phase is what that's described as. But most of the time they can be extremely agitated. And on the inside, they just suffer. Everything just rubs them the wrong way. They're angry. One minute they're happy, and then the next minute they're just angry and just, taking it out on everybody. And that agitation is a form of mania too. So, you're functioning in society, you're at work, you're with your family, you're out in public, and you're trying to suppress these feelings that you have. Therefore, you actually are working at double what other people are suffering and working at to just keep things normal. And I think that takes an incredibly intelligent and a high-functioning person in order to survive that and try to live a normal life. It is suffering at its best, and I think there are so many people who are walking around feeling this way. It's said that 80% of patients who have bipolar disorder actually are suffering from mostly depression. And that's when I see people in the office. They feel very depressed and sad and down. 20% of the time they're in that manic phase. So either that very confident, hyper talkative and spending too much money, gambling, things like that, or they live in that agitated state where everything is just rubbed the wrong way. Their temper is high, and at any moment they can just turn and just be so angry. So that is how, I see people in clinic, and a lot of times we want to throw medications at people, which is fine. I think it's perfectly appropriate. There are a lot of great medications, but you don't have to always take medication. There are a lot of things you can do outside of that, but as we've talked about in one of my previous programs, I don't want people to be afraid of medication. They can be incredibly safe. But then there's a place where people go that if they're either not on medication or they don't have a lot of a giant support system or even a small support system in their life, where people with bipolar disorder can become very impulsive and can just make a sudden decision that they just don't want to be here and then commit suicide, and then they're gone. And whereas if they had given it just a little bit more time, even an extra hour, or had one person in their life they could count on, maybe they would not have done that. So what I'd like to do is build in not only the thought that, there are physicians out there and counselors, there are hotlines, there are prevention centers, there are people that you can call. They even have chat now. So if you go online and you go to some of these, you can just Google something on your phone now or on your computer and find preventative measures. You can find a national hotline. You can find something here locally. And I want to provide some of those numbers to you so that you do feel like you have a place. But you also have plenty of physicians here in town. I'm one of them. I do treat these disorders, and I do it very differently, but I do it, and I am happy to take care of anybody who feels like they need help. There are people I can refer to if I feel like you need more help. There are counselors, and there are definitely the hotlines. So let me give you a couple of the hotlines. I want to give this early, so that, and I'll repeat this later in the show as well. One of the national hotlines is the Suicide Prevention Lifeline.org. So you can visit their website. They do have the chat available there. They also have somebody that you can actually speak to. They are open 24 hours a day. And I'm going to give you the number, so I'll give it twice, and please jot it down. It is 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. And again, if you just go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org, you can also find a direct chat and a direct way to just push a button and call. You don't have to memorize the number even, so do that. Also, to locally here in San Antonio, they do give direction to the same hotline. You can dial 311. So 311 is a local number. I think most cities have this, but you can call and order a new trash can if somebody bashed in your trash can, run over it or something. You can do that, but you can also get suicide prevention and help. So 311. We were looking this up before the show, and San Antonio 311 is on Twitter, so you can go there. There's plenty of areas on social media, so you can't be without finding some help. Another number locally is 210-207-6000, 6000. So I will give those things here again in a little bit if you missed it. But, I think that many times people feel like that there is a stigma whenever they are suffering from a mental disorder. And I'm very, very pleased that we are beginning to open up in society and recognize mental disorders more and more as an actual, medical issue, not just that somebody is crazy. Nobody, I think, is crazy. I think many, many people go through some very, very tough issues. Let me look at COVID, for instance, for the last 2 years. I know everybody's COVID, exhausted at this point, but it's here and it's real. So I know in my business as a physician, I've almost closed my business a couple of times due to the dropping numbers and the, people very fearful, staying in their homes and, not wanting to get out. I think at times people thought we were closed even, or they're afraid to come to a doctor's office because they feel like they might get exposed. They're higher risk. But that is actually not the case, and we've been able to do some telemedicine and things like that. But what COVID has also done is open up many, many avenues for patients to find care without having to walk into a doctor's office. The internet has opened up those opportunities. Social media has opened up those opportunities. COVID has made it very difficult for people to get out of their homes and has created almost a PTSD, or a post-traumatic stress disorder, for people having been through so much difficulty. I think the rate for anxiety now went from, in children even, 9% of children having an anxiety disorder actually diagnosed, now to 56%. That just devastates me. Anxiety is one of those underlying factors, I think, that drive children to become suicidal. And so for them, they need to understand these things. I think if you can have these things posted readily at your house. So imagine you've got a teenager. You think your teenager is doing very well. Sometimes they hide things from you. I think schools should have these numbers posted in their restrooms. I think even at home, you can have access to that on the refrigerator. It looks funny. The kid's like, why do you have this on the refrigerator? Mom's like, well, you never know. You never know where you could help somebody and effectively lay some information that they might be able to use. So I'm going to give it one more time. It is the suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Their number is 800-273-8255. In San Antonio, you can just dial 311 and ask for help. You can look for San Antonio 311 on Twitter and all over Instagram and Facebook and other sites. A local San Antonio number is 210-207-6000. So there's plenty of places to do it, and I really urge you to please get help if you need help. And I will give a little bit of information about my clinic, and I'll do this at the end as well, in case this is something you need a physician. I do take insurance. I also see private pay patients. I work patients up for medical disorders because sometimes you can have a thyroid disorder, a hormonal disorder. Sometimes even low vitamin D, believe it or not, can cause you to have a higher risk for depression and anxiety. There are so many vitamins and minerals that, when I see patients at my clinic, I check these things on almost every patient that comes through, and almost every patient has a significant vitamin deficiency, vitamin D being one of them. It's very, very important to your mental health. Again, thyroid and hormone disorders are there as well. Sometimes patients are obese and have low self-esteem issues. Sometimes it is a medical depression or a bipolar disorder, mood disorder, anxiety. I have a lot of veterans, and I'm happy to see veterans as well. There are lots of avenues for veterans, and I absolutely want you to take those roads with the VA and the veterans, and you can Google some of those things as well, because there's a lot of things out there for veterans, but I do see them. So anybody can come into the clinic. It is not expensive if you do not have insurance. Please do not let that hold you back from seeking help. There are lots of great places to get counseling. I do not, patients can come talk to me about feeling suicidal or depressed. It is not my first action to send you to a hospital. And people imagine talking with their doctor and all of a sudden being dragged off to some mental hospital. That is not what happens. You have lots of choices, and you have a safe place to come and a very confidential, place to come. And I really would like for you to do that. So drpbetterlife.com. I'm going to have all this information on my website, and you can also then find access to the clinic, as well as access to looking this up on a podcast, sending this to a friend or a family member somewhere. Tell them to watch and listen to this and understand suicide and prevention much, much better. So I'm going to take a short break. We will be back on the flip side. I'm going to talk just a little bit more about treatment, and then it will be a wrap. Thank you. Welcome back. Dr. Marianne Pinkston here. I have been talking a little bit before the break about suicide and suicide prevention, talking a little bit about the fact that I had a sister who committed suicide some years ago, and so the show is in her honor today. And also, though, to let people know that I think suicide sometimes is, when we look at it, we look at some of the movie stars who've done it. Oh, he had bipolar disorder, or, we always visualize it as some sort of just mental disorder, that there are people over there. They are sick. There is, it happens to other people. And believe me, it doesn't just happen to other people. It doesn't just happen to people who are sick. You actually can not have a mental disorder. You can be extremely stressed and maybe just having a post-traumatic stress disorder, a bad experience and trauma in your life. There are lots of different reasons why people become suicidal, and it has nothing to do with a mental disorder sometimes. It's almost in a way, I don't know how to say this really, but nice to tag it to a mental disorder, because then you can get medication and treat it. You have a diagnosis right there. It's something tangible. Sometimes if you are not mentally ill, so to speak, you just are under so much pressure, something terrible has happened to you. And again, I do think people can get pushed to that place, even if they don't have a neurological, mental, or biochemical, hormonal disorder of some sort, some official diagnosis. Anybody, I think, can be pushed to that level. The people that I worry about the most, honestly, are the elderly and the teens. So the elderly are, in a position, they've lived their life and sometimes succumb to feeling alone and being depressed, but in a little bit different way. It's not always just a medical diagnosis that, you just give them a pill and they're good. I think a lot of times they watch their friends and family pass. They feel very alone. Maybe they get into financial trouble. They don't have a good pension or support. And or get a diagnosis of a terrible disease that they're fearful of, or live in chronic pain. So if you have chronic pain, I want you to know that there is a support system that you can reach out to. I do run a support group for Global Pain Association. So go to globalpain.org, or you can find Global Pain Association on Facebook, and the internet, and please come and find the support group. It is generally on the first and third Tuesdays of the month from 7 to 8, and we do a lot of talking about issues like chronic pain, but also mixing things with depression or whatnot. This can be for caretakers, family members, as well as the people who are in pain. But if you are elderly and suffering chronic pain, again, that's another reason why a lot of elderly patients will commit suicide. On the teenage side of things, teenagers are very impulsive creatures. I think the statistic is about age 23 to 26 before their frontal lobe of their brain fully develops, and that they are a lot more calm in their demeanor and manner in order of thinking and making good judgments and decisions. I think anybody who has a teenager in the house knows that. But the teenagers are very impulsive, and I think we too often diagnose them with mental disorders when in actuality they are just struggling to find a normal life. And when they do not have a good support system at home of, parenting, people that they can really be confidential with and talk to, a good friend and support system, they're bullied, they experience some sort of violence. Teenagers are very impulsive and tend to commit suicide. So I think too often we tend to try to throw medications at people when really they just need a good support system. Not that medications are bad. Please do not take that the wrong way. I do prescribe them. I do believe in them. But I think building up people and their support system is a very, very important thing. So reach out to your elderly, reach out to your kids, watch them have these materials out where they can find them numbers so that they can confidential, because they are not going to come to you necessarily and just say, hey, I feel suicidal. Can I have that hotline number? So just post it around and let people know that there is help available. So I'm going to give that information one more time. It is the suicidepreventionlifeline.org, and it is a national hotline. It is 24 hours. It is 800-273-8255. 800-273-8255. And here in San Antonio, locally, you can just dial 311 on your phone, and the city will guide you to a suicide prevention hotline. There is one locally at 210-207-6000. And again, you can find them on social media, but just dial 311. Please do not let the fear of reaching out to somebody stop you from doing so. People are here to help you, as am I. So visit my site at drpbetterlife.com. I do have email there. I do have information on accessing me at my clinic here in San Antonio. I am a family practitioner. I'm at 10865 Shanefield Road in Northwest San Antonio in Suite 1101. The clinic number is 210-698-7825. I want to repeat that. I did that fast. 210-698-7825. Go to drpbetterlife.com. I'm going to have a blog this week about suicide and have all this information on the site, and I invite you please to come and visit, because you are important. We do not want to lose you, and we do want to be there for you and to help you no matter what. Guys, thank you for listening in today. I will see you next week.